Due to the graphic nature of its content, listener discretion is advised.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, Bennett, Jocelyn, and Mike are sitting down with the founder of Elite Training Programs, Mr. Wes Kennedy. Now, he is the founder and the head coach at Elite Training Programs. Wes is a 8-year veteran of the Canadian Special Forces. And I gotta say, brother, this is awesome. I love having you on the show. You're more than welcome, dude. This is great because everybody calls me a Canadian. I'm from Michigan.
Multinational now we are
So
here.
there
We're
it is.
worldwide.
Worldwide. We're taking it global. So Mr. Wes Kennedy over here, he and I'm going off the bio on the site, which is kind of something that we do every once in a while. You know, I'm checking out ldquo.com. If you haven't already done so, check it out. ldquo.com with Mr. Wes Kennedy. We're checking out you know, what you're doing here. You're doing a variety of different things, right? I mean, it's not just physical training that you're doing the whole gamut. You're doing the special operations, you know, how to train for these different types of elite packages, you know, that special operators can go into. So, Wes, thank you so much for coming on the show and tell us more about Elite Training Programs.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, Michael. I am an 8-year veteran of the Canadian Forces and a 5-year veteran of the Canadian Special Operations Regiment. So I'll just make that quick correction because people get all puckered up if you give the wrong CV out there. So 8 years in the Canadian Forces, 3 as a combat engineer, and 5 in the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, which was the highlight of my career. Awesome time there. Mm-hmm. I got out a couple years ago, and I had this idea in my head that I didn't want to take orders anymore. And the next logical progression from that was business. And in my mind, at least at the time. And I mean, I can't say that I really had any idea what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to bring my ideas into fruition. I wanted to wake up in the morning, take my idea, and go about taking the actions required to have it become a reality.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that resonates with you guys as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so, you know, for a while I knew that, hey, if I'm going to do this, it's got to be something that I'm passionate about, at least the first time, right? You know, maybe down the road I understand business, whatever that means, and can take on whatever and just enjoy the business side of things. But I knew the first thing, I don't know, I just, you know, innately knew that, hey, if you're going to do this, make sure it's something you're passionate about. I'd been into fitness for quite a while. And at first I thought, you know, this isn't really going to be like, it's going to take away from like what I enjoy about fitness. I don't really want to coach other people. And I don't know, about 3 years ago in March, I was about 8 months from getting out. And I honestly couldn't tell you what it was, but I just had a shift in mindset from going, hey, this is going to take away from what I want to do, to this is going to be really damn rewarding to work with other people and support them in bringing their fitness to an elite level, helping them get into, you know, the sport of their choosing, helping them get into selection and be prepared for selection. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of screwed around over the last year and a half, I'd say, and kind of focused on CrossFit and MMA and strength and power and adventure racing and tactical athletes. But my focus and my passion always was in the tactical athlete, into the special operations candidates, the military members, police members. And so recently we've really shifted our focus to focus just specifically on that, at least with our branding and our marketing. So we can bring more content, more value, more resources for that group of people, for you guys, for me, for all the guys I used to work with, and everybody coming up from being a civilian and taking that dream they've had since they were a little boy to pursue selection and get into special operations.
Yeah, that was the first thing that actually caught my eye. I saw the common errors made in special operations selection. I'm like, oh man, what's this guy getting into? Like when we first, we're researching background and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, this is cool. Because in our special operations community and stuff, Bennett, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We get a limited amount of, hey, this is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. So what I mean is, like, if you're going to go for like MARSOC selection, they've got a paper workout on what you should do. It was actually something that I did just for fun. Now, I wasn't going to go into MARSOC selection. I was going back to the fleet. I was already Disney marketing, all of this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, hey, man, what's an ass kicker of a workout? One of these guys, they were getting ready for MARSOC selection, and he had went and talked to his monitor or screener and what have you, and they were like, okay, do this, and handed him like a 6-page workout or whatever. And so we did it. I mean, that was the extent of that preparation. So It's awesome that you're talking about some of these different errors and stuff like that. What are some of the most common, just...
Yeah, it's funny you asked this. We got a Facebook ad up right now advertising this webinar, this free webinar. And you'd always get a few guys answering, putting these kind of comments in. Well, I'll save you the trouble. All you got to do is don't quit, be a team player, and pull your own weight. All totally valid. All totally valid things that you need to do.
Yeah.
But it really sets guys up for failure. Not like part of being in the special operations is being a forward thinker, is expanding your circle of comfort, is expanding your knowledge base. So I'm a big believer in taking a more individualized approach to it. Mm-hmm. One of the first, it's funny that you mentioned that about the training plan on paper. The first mistake that I see is actually using a military design 12-week training plan.
There you go.
And this quote, so this is a really interesting quote where is this? This is in a book called Physical Development. No, it's in a book called A Historical Review and Analysis of Army Physical Readiness Training and Assessment by Whitfield B. East. And that's put out by the Combat Studies Institute Press of the U.S. Army Combined Arms Center in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And he quotes a guy, Captain Murch B. Stewart. So in 1913, Captain Murch B. Stewart, who would ultimately serve as the 33rd Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, proposed the solution to the unit PT problem. And what he says is, in the training of the soldier, the greatest benefit is not derived by indiscriminate and impartial use of these exercises. Each individual soldier presents a special problem in physical training. Each should be studied and diagnosed as to his particular requirements, and each should be given the training his condition requires. That was over 100 years ago.
Right. That was prior to World War I.
We're starting to catch up slowly.
Yeah. And so we all know how slow the military cog goes, but that just blew my mind. Like in 1913, we've got guys saying this, and we're far more advanced in terms of what we know about the human body and strength and conditioning principles. And we're still seeing group PT, and because it builds teamwork, which I have a hard time buying that when nobody actually enjoys doing it.
Right.
To a certain point, it does for sure. Right.
It builds teamwork the way sandbags build teamwork.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, so we take an individualized approach to training. Lots of other mistakes I see from, believing CrossFit's the cure to military fitness, training on a low carb diet, training for less than a year in preparation for selection, too much focus on training for the PT test. So it's quite a fine line between training to get to selection and training for selection.
Sure.
And a whole bunch of other stuff I see, but the information's in that webinar, and I encourage guys to go and read it because it can really set them up for success and get them skipping past some of those road bumps and mistakes.
Do you have a link or a freebie for the audience?
Yeah, if they can find it at elitetrainingprograms.com/specopsmistakes.
/specopsmistakes. Cool. Make sure you shoot us that link. We'll throw it in the show descriptions for our listener.
Definitely.
Yeah, man.
So
Right on.
when you're coming up with your regimen, it's obviously there's no part of it that is anything that could start giving away any secrets. But what is the balance there? It's just the overall fitness in order to get selected, or is it also carrying over into operating as well?
Yeah, good question. I think there's so many similarities to the two of them. I mean, you got three areas, right? You got training for the PT test and passing that. You've got finishing selection, and then you've got operating over the long term on course and in combat and in your career. I think training for the PT test is generally not the best place to put your energy. Nobody really cares what your PT score is. I mean, they care, like, as long as you're getting in to selection. Right. But like doing 80 push-ups in 2 minutes, it doesn't actually represent anything you're doing in a real situation. The closest thing you're getting to doing 80 push-ups in 2 minutes is one push-up explosively with 80 or 100 pounds of gear on, running, getting down, doing it again. You're never going to do 80 push-ups. You know, it seems we're so conditioned to thinking, 80 push-ups is such a good benchmark. But if you actually think about the real world demands, there's not really any place for it.
Right. Well, it's like we do 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches, 3 miles in under, 19 minutes? Yeah, something like that. It was a 300 PFT.
Is it 19 or 18? It
might be 18.
It's 18. It's 18. It's definitely 18.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's, yeah.
So I talk about this in the webinar as well, but basically what I see the PT test train is they train aerobic power. So they train that short duration aerobic power with either usually a run test, right? 2, 3, 5 kilometers running. They test for strength endurance across the 3 modalities of sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups. And they test for either running with a load and or swimming. And what they don't test is they don't test absolute strength. They don't test aerobic endurance. They don't test anaerobic capacity. They don't test grip strength endurance, which is huge.
Yeah.
If you guys have done a selection or any sort of military training, you know how quickly, like, weak grip, when you're being told to carry odd objects over terrain or dragging somebody, you can be the fittest guy out there. If your grip is lacking, you're done. And it doesn't test for balance, coordination, agility, or just the ability to handle a large amount of volume in a short period of time. So there's a lot of things. It's a good test. I'm not gonna like crap all over the military's testing. It has to be done in a fairly short period of time. It does test for some really key pieces, and administratively, it works quite well. Having said that, it doesn't really test and prepare you adequately for selection. It just doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Those benchmarks are based on that group PT dynamic as well.
Right. Exactly. So I think you can be a pretty fit dude, hitting the top of the PFT. But I think you can be even fitter if you focus on some other components and take a more well-rounded approach to that.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, let's be honest. How bad is it to run in formation? That just sucks so bad. I mean, it can be motivating if it's a nice, like, shuffle and you're doing it to, get the motivation up on, like, a division run or whatever. But all it is annoying.
Did you just say a division run? Sorry.
Well, let's just say like division or, brigade run or regimental run, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It just kind of the caterpillar and, you're sitting there at ease and back, running, sprinting to catch up, and it just kind of sucks. So
yeah,
I'd like to see a division run at some point. That would be awesome.
Right.
Well, we used to do them at 10th Mountain, but it's a lot smaller than like 2nd Mardiv or 1st Mardiv. So,
okay.
It's funny talking about the team building. I was sitting in an OC's hour, an O group where we got asked questions, and we were going to be doing, and this is in special operations, and we were going to, we don't usually do group PT there. And it was intended that, hey, over the next month, each week, we're going to do a group PT session. And, this was our chance to kind of say, hey, this is what we think about it. And I don't know what it is about officers that they get this idea of group training and team building. But literally within the same sentence, he had said, I get that you guys don't like it, but it's intended for team building. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how do those things go together? Like, that's like 1 + 1 = potato. Like, that makes no sense. How can we be building a team if nobody likes doing it? If nobody wants to do it? It's crazy.
Yeah.
You're sitting there running and just looking at each other like, seriously? Like, who's this idiot running us here? So,
it's collective hate for the leadership.
Exactly. That's what it is. Yeah. So I guess it's team building, and if you want to be hated by your men, because, and I think they can rally around that flag.
Exactly. And I think you can have both, though. That's the thing. I think you can work out. I think you can train as a group and still have everybody doing their individual thing. I actually think that's great team building, because you're all going towards your own endeavor and you're all supporting each other in that endeavor. Mm-hmm. I think you can have both.
So in what ways are you looking to establish, are you looking to establish this to be like picked up by different units as a whole, or is it just going to be individuals being able to go through your programs?
Right now it's individuals. I think that's a piece that we're slowly working on. It's, as much as I'm a proponent of individualized training, I'm also not so naive to think that it's like a snap your fingers, quick implementable solution. I think there's a lot of things that have to go in place, getting a lot of people on board. So one, unless there's the right people in that unit championing the cause, from making sure the nutrition and the box lunches and food that they're getting is actually going to support their performance, to allowing the soldiers to have enough time for the recovery and warm up, to having some considerations around sleep. I know we're in the military and it's really a mission first environment. However, when that's not a requirement, when there's not a mission first requirement, we got to have some considerations for that recovery piece. And I think the military is getting better at that over time, but there's still a lot of times where it's kind of like, well, why are you sleeping? Like, you should just be working because that's weak, and you need to be more mentally tough. And it doesn't actually breed mental toughness over time. It breeds resentment. It breeds adrenal fatigue. It just breeds all this stuff that actually doesn't support the mission at the end of the day.
Oh my God, it's like this guy's reading my fucking journal over here. Jesus Christ. Well, it's like box nasties. I mean, Jesus. Any school that I ever went through, it was always just that white box nasty. You got a turkey sandwich, some American cheese on there, and then you squirt some mayo through it. You're lucky if you got baked Lays instead of regular. And that was like the extent of it. Maybe some Lorna
and then like a month-old orange.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Solid. Yeah.
It's like shriveled up to like the size of a clementine or something.
Yeah. And it's crazy here. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the States. In Canada, I worked with the Canadian Forces clearance divers a couple of years ago, and I had a buddy of mine who now works with me that was in the unit at the time. So we kind of played a bit of tag team in implementing some changes there. I ended up writing the program for that course of about 12 guys throughout that year, rather than just having them go in and getting beasted with random PT. They had already done their selection, right? Like, the toughness part is done. They're mentally resilient. They want to be there. So now we're creating a training program that just gets them actually more physically fit and more ready for their job.
Yeah.
And what he did on the other side, and it blew my mind, because it was like 20 years. I mean, there are all sorts of units in the Canadian Forces are trying to do this. And he managed to get the right people on board that realized that box lunches that they were getting, there was no requirement for it to be those box lunches. There was a very clear monetary value allocated to each individual on that course, and they could really get whatever they wanted. But at the end of the day, what was blocking it is certain people in charge that they're not really into fitness and they don't really care, just see calories as calories.
Right.
And so he managed to get the right people on board. So not only did they have a good, solid, intelligent, progressive program design on the course, they also had the supporting nutrition to fuel them for that training. And the benchmark we were shooting for is a sub 14-minute 1 kilometer swim with fins in open water. About one person out of 25, so about one person every 2 years, manages to get that record and gets on the plaque. And with what we implemented with some individualization and the supporting nutrition and warm up and recovery and all that. We got, I think it was 7 people under 14 minutes, 5 under 14 and a half, and 1 guy broke the unit record.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's
solid.
That's these guys, right? Like, they did the work, they put the effort in, they followed the programming. That stuff is on them. There's lots of coaches out there in the world, or at least a fair amount of coaches out there that can do that same thing. And so I just like to see that happen a lot more.
Absolutely. That's impressive.
Well, the governments involved need to also start thinking about saving money in the long run. I mean, how many guys are getting out and they've been breaking down their body for 4, 8, 20 years, and who's paying for it? Well, the people are paying for it by way of the government, because afterwards they're going to the VA or the respective Canadian Veterans Association, whatever you guys have. I'm sorry to be ignorant there, but
Yeah, I don't even know what it's called. Veterans Affairs, something. Yeah, I'm not sure. Veterans Affairs, I think, is what we call it.
But I wonder,
Veterans Affairs Canada, the VAC.
There you go.
So I mean, that's millions of dollars. So for the cost of a few hours of sleep, a training program that works, and the right nutrition to go along with it, you could save hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on just taking care of people that have broken themselves. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said, and I do appreciate what you guys are trying to do. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's solid. Wes Kennedy with Elite Training Programs, and if you haven't already done so, check out elitetrainingprograms.com. Make sure that you're signing up for their newsletter. If you're looking to get into selection also, check out their website and sign up for this upcoming webinar. Hey, Wes, I got to ask you, what province are you originally from?
BC, British Columbia.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that out west?
It is, yeah, west coast of Canada, and that's where I currently live, out on the island in Victoria, BC, on Vancouver Island.
Gorgeous out there.
Oh, yeah. Man, it's beautiful. You can never complain out here.
Right? Hell yes. That's awesome.
And for Canadian side, it's mild in comparison to some of the weather.
Oh, it doesn't snow. It doesn't snow here in the winter.
Right, it's pretty
awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah,
it's very
I didn't even know. Don't.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of nervous to say that, because like
you better
people
knock
that live
on
in
some
Victoria,
wood,
yeah, we don't actually want more people to move here. Like, if you're here, that's cool, but like, we're not inviting anybody.
But stay away.
Right.
Yeah, stay away. There's only so much room here.
Right.
It is an island and all.
Now,
Exactly.
Are you originally from out on the island?
No, I grew up in a town called Kitimat, BC, up on the north coast.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just
Yes.
curious. I mean, every once in a while when I'm sitting here chit-chatting with folks, it's cool to know where they're from. Check it out on Google Maps or something like that. I mean, I'm looking at Victoria right here. Jesus, it looks like you could hawk a loogie into America from how close you are.
Got it.
Yeah, man. Jesus.
I spent quite a bit of time in Canada, but on the other side, when I was stationed at Fort Drum, we used to go into Canada. You know, we were 28 miles from the Canadian border, so we used to go up there. And when
Is that just outside of Seattle?
No, that is it's on the East Coast. So we're right outside. Actually, the closest big town in Canada was Kingston.
Got it.
Ontario. So, and then, Ottawa's not that far, and Toronto is about 2 hours. But I didn't really like, I liked Ottawa, actually. That was a decent city. It's pretty.
Ottawa's very nice.
It's really pretty, especially, when you like the canals and whatnot. It's pretty neat. So.
Now, I got to ask, are you a Canucks fan?
I was just going to ask that.
Oh, man. Well, I don't know if I should answer that question on this podcast. I don't really follow sports, hockey included, so I may have just lost a whole bunch of followers by saying that. But
I doubt it.
I got to be honest. I don't follow sports.
Wow, right on. Well, I was just curious because
neither does Michael, unless it's hockey, though.
Right, unless it's the Red Wings.
All right.
Well, I mean,
I'm always stoked when I meet somebody else that also doesn't follow sports. Like, yeah, you get me, man.
Yeah, I totally don't. I all my friends were on sitting there, talking about the playoffs and this and that with football, and I'm just like, football's gay.
Dude,
I just don't go there. What was it, Michael? You and I had the conversation about blog posts, and I came up with 5 things to do instead of watch football on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that'll come out in like a week or 2.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like going to a live game once in a while. That's always a fun time.
But it's totally different.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Especially hockey. If you go to live hockey, pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Well, I'm just a big fan of playing the sport. I can't really watch sports.
Exactly.
Live hockey is really good, but I love playing hockey and also giving Mike shit when the Ducks win against Detroit.
Son of a bitch.
I gotta love
All right, so Wes, we are going to ask you for a first in Cigars and Sea Stories history. We need a sea story from you, brother. You know, a funny, inspiration,
up, hilarious, or otherwise.
Yeah, and this is going to be our first multinational sea story, so this is exciting.
I hate to disappoint you guys, but I racked my brain and I cannot think of anything that is PG-13 or under.
That doesn't matter. We're an explicit.
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
I'm not explicit though.
Oh,
gotcha.
Yeah. You gotta be a paying client to get my explicit side. I keep it PG. I keep it PG online on my public space.
Oh, that's so Canadian.
But we don't blame you either. So
no, not at all.
Can we cut this whole part out? No, I'm just joking.
Can we cut this whole part?
Now they know. Now they're like, that guy's definitely fucking Canadian.
Right, exactly.
You know, I heard a story about a guy that broke into a house in Canada, and a family that was on vacation came home, and instead of calling the cops, they sat him down and had a serious discussion about his life choices.
You know, it's funny too, because I asked some buddies, I was like, man, what happened? I remember laughing every single day I went into work. I was like, what was so funny? And I talked to a couple buddies, and they're like, I don't know, man. Like, it just made fun of each other a lot, I guess. And you just got to be there. I laughed every day as at work. That was the biggest thing I miss about being in the military and being at that unit, is knowing every day I go into work, I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna have some good gut busting laughs.
I guess it just comes down to the fact that once you're family. You know, you become a family, and you literally just bust each other's balls about everything. So, you know, and you can get mad at guys just as easily as you can, as, you know, whatever. But we totally understand that.
Now, where'd you serve overseas, Wes?
Afghanistan.
Okay. What province in there?
Kabul. No.
Oh, okay, up north. Yeah.
Kandahar province.
Is it?
Is it Kandahar? Is that
no?
it?
It's not Kandahar. What is it? Here.
What's the province? It's been a long time. My memory's fading.
No, I feel you. I've been blown up
whatever province Kandahar airfield is in.
Yeah. Well, I only asked because it was interesting. I don't know if no, Sebastian wasn't there because you broke your leg. But on the first deployment on the way home out of Kuwait, I actually bumped into, and I've been racking my brain trying to remember this Canadian fella's name, but he was the sniper who took the longest shot. It was when did he take that shot? I want to say it was 2005. It had to have been 2005, because 2006 is when I just bumped into the guy. We had a great conversation. It was like 2 or 3 Marines, a couple of Canadian fellas that were all around a picnic table in the middle of Kuwait, you know, bullshitting about just chewing some of the same dirt and stuff like that. You know, it's fun exchanging patches every once in a while. It's like, I like talking to the Canadians, the Aussies, and the Brits. Just because Aussies are hilarious, and they've always have a filthy story. The Brits are hilarious and half the time are drunk. And then the Canadians are hilarious because you guys are like a loft apartment above a kick-ass party. You know? I mean, it's the same, but it's kind of like going over your cousin's house.
Was it Rob Furlong?
That sounds familiar, yep. Damn. And it is Kandahar province.
It is? All the way up there? No shit. Oh, damn. Yep. Oh, damn. It is Rob Furlong.
Yep, Rob Furlong, the sniper, the 2,430 meter shot.
Yes.
Yep.
That's sick, man.
That's far.
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What kind of weapon system was he on?
Say that again.
What kind of weapon system was he on?
Tech 50, the Macmillan Tech 50 rifle.
Hell yes.
There it is.
With Hornaday AMAX 750 grain, very low drag bullets.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Crazy stuff.
Afghanistan, something like Afghanistan is never going to happen again, though. That was a once in a century type engagement there. I miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, so what were you doing, if you don't mind me asking, when you were out there? Were you guys just running, like, different types of spec op missions, a variety, or did you specialize within demo? Because you're an engineer the first 3 years, right?
Yeah, so I was an engineer, combat engineer by trade. Went over there the first time and did, quick reaction force, did the ID searching, road clearance, and luckily, we got back to camp. Infantry goes to sleep, and engineers keep filling up the HESCO. Right. And then when I came back, did selection, did course, and went over again, and we're doing long range desert mobility, doing hits, and all that good stuff, but not really like the road clearing and the engineering type stuff at that point.
Nice.
Okay.
We work a little bit differently than you guys in the U.S. with your special forces. Like, you have very specific trades, so you have your medic, you have your weapons guys, you got your engineers, int guys. Like, you get slotted once you go in after your Q course. For us, we just kind of do the course. We're a lot like the entire Canadian military compared to the U.S. We're just less specialized and more broad in our skill sets, which can be a pro and a con at the same time.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I mean, you guys do some cross training where you get to go through some of our schools, like we send some of our guys to your schools, right? And then that training is brought back and disseminated.
Yep, and we did some winter training with you guys too, with some of the guys from 10th group, I think.
Nice.
Right.
Yep. A lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Where was that at?
Petawawa, Ontario.
Nice.
Oh wow. Okay.
Up there.
Yeah. Nice and cold up there in the winter.
Yeah, it is.
Gotta love that.
They were not prepared, but they pushed through it anyways. I was impressed.
Do your training regimens differ for the different environments that your guys are, planning to go into? Desert versus, high altitude versus winter versus summer type thing.
We train in all environments. Is that what you're asking, or do we train in the environment based on where we're deploying?
Yeah, like with us specifically, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jocelyn, but to specify the question, if you're going to Iraq, our proving ground for the most part, no matter what, is going to be out in the Mojave Desert. But if you're going to Iraq, primarily you're going to be training in the desert. If you're going to Afghanistan, we do like Bridgeport mountain packages, where we go through Mountain Warfare Training Center in order to gear up for that specific environment. Do you guys do similar things?
Yep, definitely.
Well, I was actually referring to your personal endeavor. Are you gearing the training that you're giving people now?
Oh, got it.
To the different environment that they'll be stationed in?
Or not really. My primary focus with the guys usually just to have them ready for selection, and I don't think there's a huge amount of There's not a huge amount of difference in the training depending on what environment they're going to be in. If they are in a winter environment, though, we're going to have some of their zone 1 or aerobic power work. It's going to be skiing or it's going to be snowshoeing. If they have open water nearby, we're going to take advantage of that. If they're able to get out, do some rock climbing, we'll take advantage of some of the more sports specific type activities they can be doing. But at the end of the day, my main focus is, one, building a really big aerobic base for them with low intensity, low eccentric movements to start. It's getting them really strong and just structurally balanced over time. And then getting them just more and more aerobically able, so they can handle large amount of volume, really strong, start building in the strength, endurance, and then that anaerobic piece, like that high intensity interval training, that's like a small, like that's icing on the cake. And that's a big, you know, it's one of the most common mistakes I see is guys want to take this like CrossFit type high intensity interval training and think they can just do that. And the demands of that job don't actually really require a really well developed anaerobic lactic system or an anaerobic glycolytic system. If you have a big aerobic system, it negates the need to tap into your anaerobic glycolytic system. So training, usually when guys start working with me, they're usually a good percentage of the time kind of surprised that they don't feel like crap every time they leave the gym. But I would say that's kind of what's hampering a lot of guys with their results, is that they're just hitting it. They're doing 100% every time, and the body can only take so much of that.
Right. Interesting.
You know, it's really interesting because I was doing the whole CrossFit thing when I was in Quantico and all of this other stuff. It was great for a time. I'm not, shiting.
Yeah, I did too. It's great. Yeah.
But it was like the number one thing that really got it for me was just throwing on full camis, boots, throwing on a ruck and getting out there and not pounding pavement, don't get me wrong, but going down the trails, getting some ruck run in. Stuff like that was probably the most beneficial stuff I ever did in the military. Just any school that I went to that required me to run wherever I went. Not in a cardio sense, but in when you're operating, out in these environments, it's not like you're just going to be walking around wherever you go. I mean, you're advancing towards the enemy. Of course, you're going to be at some sort of recon shuffle or something like that, as we call it.
Yep.
Is that where you're going with this? I mean, you're saying aerobic, or is it more, high intensity on the cardiovascular side? Is it motion-based exercise? Is that where you're going with it?
Going with the training plan overall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 3 main energy systems: aerobic, anaerobic glycolytic, and anaerobic alactic. Anaerobic alactic we can think of as, a power clean or maybe a 10-second sprint. Anaerobic glycolytic is going to be like that 20-second to maybe 3.5-minute time zone, depending on the individual. And then aerobic is really anything after that. And we're considering like at 100%, right? So if you can do 10 seconds of just jogging and it's still going to be aerobic, right? But if we're saying 10-second test at 100%, it's generally anaerobic alactic. If it's 2.5 minutes, for instance, at 100%, the main energy system you're going to use, you're using all three at the same time. The main energy system is going to be anaerobic glycolytic. And if you're going longer than that, the main energy system that you're using is going to be aerobic. And if you look at the trait or the physical demands of the tasks required, there's very few times that you're actually doing like 2 minutes all out. And right. If you go just below that, if you have a good aerobic system, if you're able to do everything with your aerobic system predominantly, then it negates the need to actually tap into that really limited anaerobic glycolytic system. And as soon as you tap into that, if you guys ever done like Fran in CrossFit?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel after that?
Like a
pretty
beat up.
Actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to describe it.
like shit.
Right.
Yeah, you feel horrible.
Yeah.
Right.
Horrible.
And that's great. That's a sport specific, it's their competition. But consider if you tap into that in a combat environment, how effective are you going to be after that?
Right. Negative.
Right. And here's the thing. A lot of these top level CrossFit athletes, people see them doing like, man, you did Fran in 2.5 minutes. Great. But here's the interesting thing. For those top level guys, when they do it in like 2.5 minutes, when they go all out, it's still their anaerobic glycolytic system. But if that same guy, if his top time is 2.5 minutes and he does it in 3, he's made it aerobic.
Right.
And if it's aerobic for him, you're going to look at him and be like, man, like he's so fit. Like I've got to do that. Like that's insane. And then you go do it, you're utilizing a completely different energy system mainly because your aerobic system just isn't big enough to keep up with it.
Right.
So if we can build that big aerobic base and have really high aerobic power, then you can do these higher and higher intensity activities in combat and not tap into that limited energy source, which is going to put you it's going to put you in a compromised position.
Right. Yeah.
Now, is there any training that does allow the body to switch between the three more efficiently, or does your training also have anything to do with that? Like, if they happen to have overexerted themselves, their body's not going to freak out from it?
Good question. So at the end of the day, your aerobic system is what's replenishing your anaerobic glycolytic and anaerobic alactic. So really good question. And it's the other huge reason why a big aerobic system is so important. So if you have a big aerobic base, you do, well, let me give you this instance for this example. Mm-hmm. There's something that's been coined in CrossFit by some of the higher end CrossFit coaches called CP battery, or your creatine phosphate battery. That's your anaerobic lactic system, but they call it a creatine phosphate battery because there's something really unique in CrossFit in that it's one of the only sports where you have to take near maximal load and do multiple repetitions in a short period of time. So you might have to take 85-90% of your 1 rep max power clean and do a whole bunch of repetitions in like 6 or 8 minutes. There's really no other sport that has that requirement in it. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways to get better at doing that is to have a big aerobic base, because as you deplete that creatine phosphate, it's your aerobic system that's going to replenish it. And there's all the science behind it in terms of the Krebs cycle and how all of that stuff actually happens is, like we could talk about that for 4 hours, but just know that when you do tap into those more limited energy systems, the anaerobic systems, it is your aerobic system that will replenish it faster. So cardio or aerobic has gotten a bad rap over the past like 5-10 years. And it's really not validated. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when you say aerobics, that your mind goes to like what? I mean,
1980 step aerobics with spandex.
Right, exactly. Like the
the glory days.
What people usually say when they talk aerobic is cardio. And aerobic simply just means with oxygen, and anaerobic means without oxygen. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So
it can be anything. I mean, it can be step ups. The energy system you use is going to determine. It's going to be dependent on the individual, the intensity, the time domain, and the modality. So there's a lot of like pieces. We can't just say, hey, the guy's running, that means it's aerobic. We got to look at the individual. We got to look at how long he's running for. We got to look at the intensity. There's just a lot more factors. And I think everybody wants the simple solution, and the simple solution gets you limited results.
Right. Gets you simple results.
Yeah, simple solution gets you simple results. A little bit more in-depth solution gets you much more in-depth results.
Oh. Yeah, man. Makes sense to me. It's funny, though, because, who was it? What's the guy's name? Wim Hof. Are you familiar with Wim Hof? They call him the Iceman.
Okay.
Wim Hof does he over-oxygenates his blood, essentially. Right. Through his breathing and all of these different things. I just didn't know if you happen to study any of that stuff, because the guy's summiting, he summited Everest, no oxygen, in shorts with crampons. Does Kilimanjaro with 80-year-old men who, were basically had to use walkers to get everywhere and stuff like that. And now he's walking up Kilimanjaro with these guys. You know, and he's saying, hey, it's entirely possible. It's just we're not breathing correctly.
I think there's probably a lot to it. I've done free diving and seen the effects of oxygen, breathing to saturate your body with oxygen. At the same time, there's a really good book called The Sports Gene that's written by a guy named David Epstein, who's a writer at Sports Illustrated, and he gets into the background, like why are a disproportionate portion of the top 100-meter sprinters coming from Jamaica? Why are a disproportionate portion of the top marathon runners coming from Ethiopia? There's this other example, and this kind of goes into that oxygen piece. is there's some, I think it's cross-country skiing, and they're somewhere in Scandinavia.
Finland.
But this family basically has a gene mutation that causes them, they would test positive for blood doping. So it's where you take blood out, put blood back in to have more red blood cells, or get your body to start producing more red blood cells, which helps you utilize oxygen more effectively and is illegal. So they would naturally test positive for it. But this gene mutation just naturally has them producing like way more red blood cells than the average person. So much so that they all present with very like red, like beet red face. Like if you and I went out into cold weather and like just stood there for a couple minutes and came back in with like a beet red face, they look like that all the time.
Interesting.
Oh.
And so a lot of times, I mean, people don't really give the credit where it's due with genetics, but genetics can play a huge factor in that stuff.
Walking around with a beet red face, I'm pretty sure you just described like every Irishman. Yeah.
Right?
Right?
That's how I walk around.
Right.
Might be because I'm fat, though.
Well, maybe you got to go start doing cross-country skiing. You might be a shoo-in. You might got that,
you're right.
that genetic mutation.
I used to do it when I was younger. What about you? What about you, Sebastian? Do you have that gene? You finish studying?
To be honest, I don't breathe enough. I actually find myself just sitting at my natural respiratory pause a lot. But when I do end up breathing a lot, I feel a lot better. So
it's pretty healthy. Which is pretty healthy.
Do you find yourself yawning a lot?
On occasion, but the weird thing is, I mean, I can swim underwater for 75 meters without any issue because my body's accustomed to working on, I guess, low oxygen. But yeah, I definitely need to breathe deeper, and there's something to be said about that. I mean, children breathe deep naturally, and we kind of lose that over the years just being lazy. But I think that we're meant to breathe a lot heavier than we naturally do, and it's been something I've been trying to get myself to do naturally, is just, you know, every couple minutes when I realize, just take 10 deep breaths and get some oxygen in my body, because like you're saying, Wes, like oxygen is our best friend. You know, we need to be able to utilize it well. We need it for any process in the body will be assisted by it. Our cells healing to, you know, being able to function better. So, you know, there's that.
Cigars and Sea Stories is proud to support and sling Counter-Strike coffee. Counter-Strike coffee, I want you to know, is meant to be drink black. Now, I myself love coffee. I'm a big coffee drinker. I went away from black coffee for a little while. Needed the cream and sugar when I was rocking it with the generic blend. Counter-Strike coffee brought me back into the fold in a huge way. They do a great dark roast. I'm a big fan of napalm. That's my fave. Smooth operator is good, though. It can go with cakes and pies, and I got a bit of a sweet tooth. I know a couple of us do, you know. And then also Firewatch. I mean, Firewatch, that's going to be the kick in the ass that you need in order to get your day going the right way. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't already done so, check out counterstrikecoffee.com. Use promo code CigarsandC. You will get 10% off. Again, that's counterstrikecoffee.com. Use promo code CigarsandC to get yourself 10% off.
So, you know, it's interesting because you made the reference of natural respiratory pause just now, Sebastian. And, you know, I'm a combat martial instructor. At least that's the background. And I find myself going to the natural respiratory pause all the time, but in a meditation sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it's the exact same shot process that you would go through when you're sitting there on the 500-yard line or something like that. But it is my happy place. It's like, you know, that's just where it's at. And I find myself, whenever I get stressed out or anything like that, that's kind of like the breathing that I go through, and it's probably the exact opposite what I should be doing. I should be outside taking in giant gulping lungfuls, you know, trying to breathe in around all of these trees that we've got out back. Instead, I'm holed up in the office going,
check out free diving techniques. I did that in Thailand on Koh Tao, I think it was called. And you do that you basically like pressurize the air, the oxygen into your lungs. And you do that for about 5 minutes. And man, somebody could have, like, your house could have burnt down. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel really good.
Right. We used to do some crazy stuff when I was in recon, because we spent about half our time in the water. I used to love that stuff. Let's just love it.
Did you really, or?
No, I mean, it was always fun that I don't know. It was always the competition that who could hold their breath longer, and
right.
You know, sometimes it ended up not so good. I guess you could say, with like shallow water blackouts and things, just because
right.
People's will, you don't understand how strong your will is until you can hold your breath underwater. And
yeah, that's impressive.
Until you can stay, you know what I mean? So it's kind of stupid. But Wes, as a businessman on this whole other side, how well did your military training, do you think, help you with the whole business side of this
endeavor?
You're in right now, yeah.
Yeah, I think it helped me tremendously. The physical fitness piece and just having the capacity and the time to develop my interest in that while I was in the military is huge. The background of having that niche, that special operations background. Look, I mean, guys don't come to me because, I mean, now they come to me because they hear I'm a good coach. They didn't come to me at first because they heard I was a good coach. They're just like, hey, you did what I want to do. Show me how to do that. Right. And that was huge for me to get started and get a leg up. And in terms of the business side of things, I think the organization is huge. Like, people are just not organized outside of the military at all. Like, it blows my mind. Like,
it's shocking.
It's crazy.
Isn't it?
Oh, and I wasn't any different before I was in. Like, don't get me wrong, but the military, they drill that organization piece in.
Well, because you're organized, you're quicker. You're operational. You're bam, bam, bam. Yes.
Yep.
And you're able to adapt
so much that faster. Shit all the time.
That's the other thing. Yep. You're so much more able to adapt.
Yep. And I think the last thing would be like the what's important now concept. Like, what is in my circle of control, and what should I be focusing on next? Like, what's going to kill me next?
Yeah. Pragmatism.
Yep.
Hell yes. Got to prioritize. Hell yes.
So it's been a huge help. I mean, I credit the military to, I credit a lot of my success to the military, and I can't even imagine what my life would have been like if I hadn't done those 8 years. It was a dream come true, to be honest. It was an adventure. It was a challenge. It was just a really great 8 years. And, that chapter's closed now, but I'll always remember that and take the lessons I learned from it.
Well, it seems like with your line of work that you get a lot of the camaraderie still, because you're dealing with a lot of veterans as well, aren't you?
Yeah, and we just started, this was a project in the making for a while, but we just started a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for all the clients I work with. And that camaraderie aspect is really starting to come out in there, which is really fun to see.
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, man, it gets you through, you know?
Mm-hmm. It does. It's a big change. You get out and you don't realize that you're not going to have 30, 40, 50 guys that are just like you and live the same lifestyle and speak the same language and have the same hobbies. Like, you just don't find that outside of the military, or outside of like the combat arms specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta make your own tribe.
So now, all right. So I understand that the military background that you have has helped you out now in being an entrepreneur. But can you give us like an oh shit moment where you're in business and you're seeing what's going on around you and you're like, oh my God, dude, like, I don't have an answer for this based upon my civilian training, where you had to rely on your military background in that business entrepreneurial moment?
That's a good question. That's a tough one to answer.
Why we ask it. See, and I only ask because I know a lot of different guys who came out of the combat arms aspect of things, and they're like, dude, entrepreneurship and being a patrol leader goes hand in hand. You know, or running missions all the time where you got to kick op orders and stuff like that. You know, that's how it tailors into my business. So,
you know, I mean, yeah, you know, I think it's funny if you look back, if you knew me as a kid, it's completely different. Like I look back, I feel like I'm looking at a movie or a storybook. I wouldn't even go on like the scary rides at the carnival. Like my sister would go on them, and I'd be like, nah, like that's too much. I don't want to do that. And I don't know what happened in the military, but that stuff went away. You know, before I knew it, I'm rappelling out of helicopters and, you know, fast roping out of helicopters and going into kill houses and finding, you know, IEDs on the side of the road. And I think that willingness to step into the unknown really, really helped me in business. I think the willingness to say, you know, to get an opportunity, say to be on a podcast or get an opportunity to do a speaking engagement or to run a workshop or whatever, and to have that kind of like fear come up in your throat, or that, man, I don't want to sound like a chump, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I'm not quite ready yet, I need to go get better. And just saying, nah, screw that, I'm just going to do it, because that's the only thing that's going to move me forward. Yeah, just pushing it back down, and just knowing that, man, you're on this earth for 70, 80 years. I'm almost 30 now. I got maybe 40, 50 left. Like, why am I going to waste my time thinking about doing anything? If I'm thinking about doing it, the next thing I better be doing is actually doing it.
Right. Right.
Right.
I asked because I had a conversation with one of she's a close spiritual advisor, and I'll give her a shout out. Laura, I love you, and I could not make it through life without you. But it was funny because I was talking to her earlier, and I'm like, you know, I don't suffer from imposter syndrome, right? Oh, God, what are they going to think of me? My problem is I'm like, okay, how can I do everything all at the same time?
Yeah.
You know, like, how can we, it's almost like, okay, yep, we've got to do this. We're going to do the podcast and the marketing, and Blood Stripes is up and all of this other craziness that's all going on. And that is where, I mean, at least for me, the pragmatism really kicks in. It's like, oh, you know, just take a deep breath, you know, but I don't know. I don't know if you encounter the same thing.
You know, I actually just finally had an epiphany a couple weeks ago that I was doing too much at once. And people have told me that in the 2 years I've been in business. Like, I've heard it in different forms from different mentors or different coaches or different people that I follow about, hey, just, you know, focus on one thing at a time. And while I've been able to do multiple things because of that pragmatism, and because I can just kind of keep calm and just focus on what zone I'm in at the moment, man, I've switched over to getting like just super focused on this special operations training in the last couple of weeks, and everything is just like melting away. It's more fun. I get more excited, engage with my clients. I have more time to learn more so I can bring them more value. It's just way, way, way better for me.
Sounds like some tips we might want to take, Michael.
Just maybe.
Well, and it's funny because I bring that up because I've had advisors and mentors and everyone else say, you know, hey man, just make sure that you're not doing everything all at once. You know, you got to have that. A Gantt chart is a great tool, but you got to be able to stair step some of these different things. You know, you can have a little bit of an overlap in between two different projects. Yeah, it's just, you know, not everything can happen all at the same time. Not everything can launch all at the same time. Not every book can come out all at the same time. So it's difficult.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, I think I was never going to listen to that in the first year and a half. The first year and a half in business is like, for me anyway, it was just, let's learn as much as I can. Like, let's just take every course I can. Let's just constantly reinvest in myself. And I feel that after that year and a half, while I by no means know everything about business or fitness or anything really, and I hopefully never will, because that sounds kind of boring. But I feel like now I have a framework. I have kind of a roadmap, a framework that when something new comes at me, I know at least where it fits. And I have a better heuristic, or I have a better decision-making process as to whether to pursue something or not. Whereas before it was just like, oh, this is new. Like, what does this acorn taste like? Oh, look, another acorn. What does that acorn taste like? And, you know, now I can be like, you know, I don't know what that acorn tastes like, but I've had an acorn kind of like that, and it's just not what I'm ready for right now. So I'll just put that aside, my little, you know, blue acorn basket. I'm going to go over here and work on my green acorns right now.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, it's funny. I bring up a lot of these questions because, Jesus, I mean, like, I can talk. These guys know that I can talk. I can chew somebody's ear off.
Jesus Lord, yes.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of times when we're strategizing or we're discussing, you know, what the vision's looking like as it's going and stuff, it's because there's got to be an overall scope or a vision of it. I tell you what, getting back to the PG-13 on the internet, okay? There's an image, a marketing, a persona that goes along with anything that we're doing, right? We're all authors. We've worked together on different books and stuff like that. We've done a number of different things. But bloodstripes.com, which is our Marine Corps online mentorship tool, that's all professional. Cut, dry, suit and tie type stuff. Cigars and Sea Stories, bum-fuckity ass cunt shit. I say whatever the hell I want. Right? So it's pulling apart those two opposite ends of the spectrum. The glue, the sandwich in between is us. It's the team.
Yep.
It's the men who make that up. Are you guys, because I'm looking at your team, that's why I'm asking you this stuff. You know, are you actively pursuing like a head coach? Do you guys have a culture that you're looking to cultivate, or you've already cultivated within your team, or maybe your company? Do you have other, you know, tangential projects that you'd like to go into?
Yeah, I think we're really kind of at the point, you know, I've always understood that culture was important, or it was important to have some control over it, or be the one that's guiding it, really. I mean, that's crucial. But I've learned so much, and it's changed so much, and my business model has changed over the years. And so I think it's something that's probably due to come back at shortly. You know, I have some other projects. I started getting into the business consulting specifically for the health and fitness businesses. As you know, as we've experienced our success, and I quite enjoy the business consulting side of things. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be branding that under my own, personally, under wesleykay.com. I'm actually going to be branding myself quite a bit more, as it will allow my creative brain that's not going to let me ever stick to just one project, always have something to tie it back to, right, and build that trust with my tribe and with my community.
Cool.
Look at that, kindred spirits right here. Mike has just got a boner.
Oh man. Well, are you doing the same thing?
Not the exact same thing by any means. I'm looking to do the the webinar e-course, the coaching, things of that nature with a 5-paragraph business plan. I took our operations order that we use in the military, and I crammed in the business concepts that we learned at Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans, and took their business planning model, sandwiched the two together, and I discuss it with veterans and civilian entrepreneurs alike. But I ask you primarily about culture because one of my, I don't want to call him a hero, but one of the business leaders of yesteryear, Mr. Peter F. Drucker, an awesome dude. And my favorite quote by him is, "Culture eats strategy for lunch." You know, and everything that I'm centered on as far as coaching, 5-paragraph business plan, all of this other stuff, that's centered around planning and strategy. It's up to you as the individual to come up with your own company culture. You know, for us, it's pretty simple. Company culture, we're Marines. I speak Jarhead. He speaks Jarhead. And we get it done.
Yep.
You know, so I it's unique because how often do we have a, I'm going to use the term foreign national on our podcast? But you're an adjacent unit in Canadian Forces. I mean, what's the culture that's associated with your company? Does it come out of Canadian Special Forces?
Oh, one sec. Let me look something up.
Hua? Did you just say hua?
What? Yeah, blasphemy.
Oh Lord. I was just watching the Range 15 trailer again.
Oh dear God.
And
I watched it.
I found Doc Buttrey.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
So one of the so the core values we originally came up with for elite training programs anyways were honesty, determination, improvement, results, and community. And I mean, I think a huge culture piece for me is the improvement piece. I mean, it's all 5 of them, but I really value constant improvement, constant learning, constant personal transformation, and education.
Mm-hmm.
And man, actually, I mean, I haven't really looked at these in a few weeks or a few months actually, but yeah, I mean, those are our words for sure: honesty, determination, improvement, results, and community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm checking them out right here. It's on their mission vision page. I love it. It's a great site. It's clean, good share buttons, a lot of information on here, but not busy. It's good, man. It's solid.
We lucked out. Well, I don't know if we lucked out or just spent our way to a good web designer, but
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and follow us along while you're listening to the podcast. It's elitetrainingprograms.com. Again, that's elitetrainingprograms.com. Check out Wes Kennedy. Check out all of these awesome offerings. What was your freebie again? What was the webinar? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's 2. There's the webinar, and that's elitetrainingprograms.com/specopsmistakes. And there's also a 3-part video series on how to create a training plan, kind of like a year-long training plan as you prepare for selection. And that can be found at elitetrainingprograms.com/specopsvideos.
Sweet.
Cool. Hell yes. Yeah, shoot those links over to us. We want to make sure that winds up in the description.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, this is a really cool experience. How often are we shooting the shit with Canadian Special Operations? I mean, that just doesn't happen.
There's not many of us,
right? Now, I'm sorry. Is that an Army thing? I don't know the branches of the Canadian Forces. I apologize.
Yeah, so we're set up as a command. I think the plan is to have us as one, like a 4th element, Army, Navy, Air Force, and CANSOFCOM. But right now we're a command, so the way it's just structured a little bit differently. I think it's, you guys have US SOCOM.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but nobody else, like nobody in US SOCOM would be part of an element or of a, sorry, what do you call it?
Like a branch. We call it
branch. So you guys, so you wouldn't be part of that branch anymore. You would just be part of US SOCOM. That's sort of how we're structured right now.
It sounds. I don't mean to draw a comparison.
Sounds confusing.
Well, no. It's not. It doesn't sound confusing to a Marine.
Got it.
Because the United States Marine Corps is not a formal branch of the U.S. Armed Forces.
Not technically.
Technically.
We're the men's department of the Navy.
Right.
Interesting.
So that gives us freedom of movement, though, also.
Yes.
So
exactly.
we can go to combat. We can go to armed conflict with another nation for up to 90 days, based upon a directive by the executive. So that would be the president, the commander-in-chief, sending us into harm's way. We can go for up to 90 days. It took us, 14 to take Iraq?
Correct.
Can you imagine what it would take in 90 days, what we could do? It's interesting. There's only 212,000 United States Marines that are out there. That's both active and reserve components. So we're a small, not branch, kind of weird bastard child in the Navy that does not get half the budget.
So, it does twice the work.
Right, and gets hand-me-downs from the U.S. Army.
Yes.
So
I've heard that before. That's not the first time I've heard that.
Now the whole Canadian force only has about 60-something thousand in it, right?
Yeah, somewhere around
that's Navy, Air Force, and Army.
And reserves, I think. Oh no,
Yeah.
not reserves.
Oh, reserves, it would be more.
Might be closer to like 100 with reserves.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Yeah, so even smaller than the Marines.
Yeah.
The whole
Yep.
force.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I
Yep.
mean, you also only have what? How many? What's the population of Canada?
Well, 30. I think it's 37 million. Is what I say.
So about 10% of the
Yeah.
U.S. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And it's surprising having the second biggest country in the world, but you'll find that if you look on the map, and I always remind myself of this, that like all the entire population of Canada is, most of it, 95% of it is in like the lower 20% of Canada.
it's like, what is it? I think within 100 miles of within 100 miles of the Canadian and U.S. border.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 200 miles.
Yeah,
probably.
something like that.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I was a kid, I was trying to figure out where all those hockey teams came from, and I'm going from, what is it? What's the furthest east? I think it's Ottawa's. No, Montreal's the furthest east, like professional hockey team.
Yes, correct.
In Canada, at the very least. For us, the furthest east professional hockey team in America is Boston.
Right.
Fun fact. So it's funny though because you follow the highway. I got to pull it up on here, but basically you follow the highway and it's all interconnected, right? You've got
401, right?
Well, it's Vancouver, Edmonton, Ottawa, Montreal. They're all along the same highway, are they not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Isn't that the 401? Is
Trans-Canada
that what it
Highway?
is? Yeah.
Trans-Canada Highway?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that when I was a kid, and I was like, Dad, their country is just so much different than ours. He's like, yeah, that's how countries are. Don't be weird.
And it's just gigantic. It really is huge.
Oh, it's massive.
You look at it on the map, you just can't even believe it.
It's massive, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Right.
I'm not even going to give you shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people, when I was in the Corps, a lot of people were like, oh, you're from Michigan, so you're Canadian. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, funny enough, I got to drive south to get to Canada from my hometown. So I guess, whatever.
Right.
Midland, Michigan, you drive 2.5 hours south to cross over, Detroit.
Into Windsor.
I guess if I really, I could just drive down to 69, don't get me wrong, and then cut across from there over towards London, but whatever. Yeah, I just thought it was so funny as a kid. I think Edmonton, yep, I'm looking at the map right now. Edmonton's the only, major professional sports team, whatever you want to call it, that's not on the Trans-Canadian Highway.
Yep.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's cool though. When I was a kid growing up in Michigan, we'd go up through the Sioux Locks and we'd, I'm trying to remember the name of this. It's like a ski resort or something like that. It was very close to the southern portion of Hudson Bay. Damn it, I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but it was just a fantastic experience going there and also to Banff.
Yes.
Oh, gorgeous out that way. That's, and that's in British Columbia, is it not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Part of it's in Alberta, but I don't think it should be that way. I think like Alberta should end like right as the mountain slope starts to kick up. I consider like anything that's like not prairie, like as soon as you get that mountain, that's BC, whatever, regardless of the borderline.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
God. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a freaking gem. There's a lot of different great places that are up there that a lot of people will never experience because they're just like, oh, you mean the Great White North? Is that what you're talking? Oh, yeah, up there with your polar bears and all sorts of stuff.
You can't live and not visit BC. If you haven't visited BC, you haven't lived yet. There's beautiful places all over the world, but BC is just like the Rockies. I mean, you guys get it in Colorado too, but
but not like that.
Yeah.
So the last thing I have to say, Wes, is there's this company, Canadian company, that decided to bottle air from the Canadian Rockies. Did you hear? Have you heard of this?
I've not heard of it, but I believe it.
Yeah. So they decided because China, I guess it was like 3 months ago, had a code red air quality thing in Beijing, right? So these geniuses and your Canadian Rockies decided, let's bottle some air and sell it to the Chinese. Well, they did, and they sold it for like $30 a bottle, and it sold out in like I can't remember how many, like the first run production they did was, it was,
do you like sniff it or shoot it?
Yeah, basically, I guess they like
Shoot it.
I guess they like huff it. You know what I mean?
Huff it? Yeah.
Or
Like-
whatever. I don't know. I guess they put like the little breathing masks on and they breathe it in. So
Just 2 straws up their nose?
right or something. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's
Like
just
it's like
I still
sipping
can't
on
believe
sipping
this
on a
is a
Pepsi.
thing.
right. So
It's straight out of Spaceballs. It's
Straight
a
out of
fucking
Spaceballs,
Mel
it
Brooks
is.
movie for
or
Christ.
straight out of the Lorax.
Right.
Oh man.
So you've got these guys, and now I guess they've already pre-sold another like 1,000 cans. Like,
Do you think they had to get like did they have to get a license to do that?
I have no idea, but I think
course
it's
not.
genius.
It is. I'm always upset when somebody comes up with an idea like that, and I didn't. I mean, I'm like working my butt off here. These guys are just going up in the mountains and
Right.
bottling air. Like the
Bottling
guy.
air.
Did you hear
So-
about the guy that he just because there's an agreement that nobody can own the moon, so he just put a patent in, or not patent, but he put in like whatever it's called. He just claimed the moon and he started selling plots on the moon
Oh yeah.
because it
yeah.
said a country couldn't own it, but an individual could, and the guy made millions of dollars. Like that's insane.
Or it's like the guys that sell the Scottish land, and so you can become a laird, or like
Oh, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's a
God.
1 foot by 1 foot piece of you know, and now you have a title in Scotland. It's
That's
hysterical.
nice.
But that kind of stuff, or the guys that sell stars, allow you to name stars.
Oh yeah.
That type of shit. It's fun.
That's genius.
It is genius. So
Oh,
selling air, man.
I know
Awesome.
for a fact that there's a market for North Carolinian forest air
Right.
that we can do.
seaside,
Dude.
seaside splendor.
Go outside your house
Seaside
right now,
splendor.
Wes. Go outside of your house. Well, not right now because, you know, it's whatever, the sun's down. But I guarantee you start snapping photos, you know, from the island. You're good. There are
Slap
tons
them
of
on-
people that
slap
buy
them
that
on
shit.
some cans. We're done.
I'm gonna sell like famous people's breath.
There
Right.
you go.
Just get like
Wow.
Famous
bottle.
people's breath.
Hey, could
Oh
you
my
put that in
God,
the
that's
picture
such
for
a
me?
good idea.
Can I get
like
some of George
$50,000 a
Clooney's
pop.
gingivitis,
Right.
please?
Oh, God, it's awesome.
It's famous. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's
Exactly.
famous.
Gingivitis is an extra 10K.
Get your celebrities.
Yeah.
No, gingivitis. Oh my
Gingivitis is like Tabasco sauce.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Oh, Christ. All of the wonderful things that we come up with. Well, Wes Kennedy of Elite Training Programs, it has been an honor and a privilege, sir.
Likewise, thanks for having me on, guys. Pretty cool stuff that you're up to. Great talking to some American ex-Marines.
Never
Ooh.
X.
Never.
Oh, no.
By
Never-
congressional order.
Never say that.
No,
Can we
sorry.
cut that out? Can we redo that, please?
No, it's all right. We'll just leave it in because we will correct you hard. All right?
Are you guys all knife handing me right now?
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yes. I am locked and cocked. It is condition 1. All right? You might let back the fuck up. It's a beautiful thing. Yes, we're very proud of that, lifetime title. We get to carry it to the afterlife.
You should
Pretty
be.
cool.
Because
You
we're
should
the
be.
only ones that can, right, Jocelyn?
Yep.
Oh,
Nobody else. And I mean, granted, it was a marketing ploy to get people back into the Marine Corps from the Army. However, it stuck, and we're running with it. We took that
Goddamn
torch
right.
and we started waving that motherfucker around.
All right, so last thing for Wes Kennedy. We say hoorah. The Army says hoa. What do Canadian Special Operators say?
Sorry, I don't know.
I love
We don't have a saying. We don't got a saying.
No?
They don't
You
have
guys, you Americans seem to come up with them for us on Saturday Night Live and all that horse shit. So I'm not sure, man.
I figure you'd be a bigger
We
set.
just put our head down, stay quiet, and do the business.
There you go.
I like
Nice,
it.
quiet professionals over there.
There it is. Quiet professionals.
That's it.
That's what you got to do when you only got 60,000 people in your military,
Yeah.
right? Hell yes, man. Hell yes. That's awesome, dude. This has been an eye-awakening, an awakening experience to the
Eye-opening, eye-awakening.
eye-opening. There it is, eye-opening. Thank you. It's been eye-opening in the ways that you guys are training up there. I honestly did not know that quote about said general out of Leavenworth, who was talking about, back in 1913, how we should be doing individual diagnosis and training. Jesus, man. Who the hell missed the boat on that one? But, yeah, man, this is great. I'd love to keep the conversation going offline, talk about some of that coaching aspect, and all of the other different great training programs that you guys are doing up there. So let's keep in touch, shall we?
Definitely. Thanks a lot for having me on, guys.
Cool. Yeah, will do. Hey, listeners, if you haven't already done so, check out ldquo.com. Check out our good friend over here, Wes Kennedy with Canadian Special Operations. It's awesome, dude. Hit subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Player FM. We're out there on a number of different aggregators. Leave your comments below, and if you want to check out more about elite training programs, go ahead and find them on the web. He's also got this freebie. Can you give us your links again on the webinar and your other videos one last time?
Yeah, it's elitetrainingprograms.com/spec-ops-mistakes for the 12 mistakes special operations candidates are making as they prepare for selection. Mm-hmm. And the 3-part video series can be found at elitetrainingprograms.com/spec-ops-videos. And that covers how to build a year-long training plan to prepare for selection.
Very cool. Cool insights there. Good freebies. Go ahead, check them out. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And please share with a friend. Guys, always a pleasure and a privilege.
Yep.
Jocelyn, cue the music.